Hi everybody, it's Violet Kitty. I'm going to try not to ramble, but this isn't going to be my typical organized vlog. Last month I was in a great deal of pain and I asked for prayer, and came back having been diagnosed with strep, even though he never actually did a throat culture. And since I've never had strep in my life, as far as I know, looking back on it, I didn't really know the difference. While I was on antibiotics, I felt pretty good. But shortly after I got off antibiotics, symptoms started mounting, and, a great deal of shortness of breath, random pain in different places, and swelling, strange things. Not this last Saturday, but the week ago Saturday, I took some antibiotics. I started another course of antibiotics, and in the middle of the night I had 103 temperature, but the next day I felt fantastic. And so I was thinking, okay, it's really responding to this erythromycin. No, it wasn't erythromycin. I can't take that. Amoxicillin. But I didn't get any sleep that next night, and starting Monday, pain, just general malaise, started mounting. And by the evening, the pain was really intense. And I was on stick ham in Sister Sunshine's room, and they were praying for me and really encouraging me to go to the emergency room, but I was resistant because I don't have health insurance. And round about 3, Elizabeth 01010101 said, "Do you want me to call your father?" And I was like, "No, I'll call in about 2 hours," because I knew that they'd be awake by 5. But maybe 5 minutes later I just gave up, and I called, and most wonderful of all things, my father was awake. I didn't find this out until later, but I didn't have to wake him up. So he came right over, he took me to the emergency room, and I couldn't really walk at that point, and they wheeled me directly into an exam room pretty much immediately. I didn't have to spend any time in waiting. And I got a really great ER doc. He had a fantastic bedside manner, was very good at listening to everything I had to say, plus asking probing questions. And he said, "There are too many strange things." He said, "This has Lyme written all over it." And he said, "We're going to go ahead and treat for the beginning stages of Lyme because it does combat an upper respiratory infection, which you obviously have." And he said, "But we're pretty sure that you've got Lyme. I'll take a test." So I got blood drawn, and it was so funny because I was in so much pain. I was like, "Well, what can we do for the pain?" And he's like, "Well, we can give you Toradol." And I said, "Can I get it as an injection?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Can I have it in my butt?" "Yeah." So I got that, and then they drew blood. They drew 5 vials of blood to send off for various tests. Hyperthyroidism, just because I am extremely thin and I have not been able to gain weight for about 10 months now. Which that actually turned out negative. Yay. Lyme, some other things, I'm not sure. The Lyme test, I called back on Thursday for the results as I was supposed to, and the administrative girl said, "Oh, I'll be right back with your results." And she comes back and she said, "A nurse needs to talk to you." Well, that's pretty much a guarantee that it's a bad result. Because if it's a good result, the administrative can tell you, oh, it's negative, no problem. But they weren't able to get back to me that day, so the next day I called in, and a physician's assistant said the test proved inconclusive. Well, for the record, there's about a 90% false negative with Lyme disease, because there's a very small window of time that the average test will actually catch it. And the very fact that it was inconclusive pretty much means that it's positive. They've sent it off for a higher level test. He said that when it comes inconclusive on the low test, it pretty much always comes back positive as a higher test. So even though I don't officially have the final diagnosis, they're treating it as if I have Lyme, just because of the nature of how the tests go. Not exactly sure at what point I am in the disease process. Just from what I've read, it sounds like I'm level 2, stage 2, which is about a year of dealing with this. Very few people are caught in stage 1. Lyme is the great pretender. It often mimics other diseases. Since I have arthritis, I kind of wrote off a lot of the evident symptoms as just being my arthritis acting up. And so it probably went further with me than it may have if I hadn't had arthritis. I am no expert in Lyme disease, but before the year is out, I will be. I know a bit more about Lyme than a lot of people do who don't personally have it, just because a very good friend of mine is in stage 4, and she really encouraged me to get a Lyme specialist, and she's like, this will kill you. Yes, Lyme is potentially deadly. So it is not to be treated lightly. It needs very aggressive treatment from a physician that has taken several courses in, I guess, Lymology. I don't think that's a word. But it's just something that has to be treated, and it involves a great deal of physical pain, a great deal of fatigue. A lot of times people who are in stage 2 or 3 are starting to get diagnosed with MS. And with MS, you basically treat the symptoms, not the disease. So the disease of Lyme will progress much worse, and before they get their final diagnosis, which is what happens with a lot of Lyme patients, and then they get into this stage 4, and then it's living with Lyme. I'm very fortunate. I believe that we got it caught early. Like I said, I got about a year ahead of me. I'm going to do some chronicles, the Lyme Chronicles. Again, like I said, I'm not an expert, but by the time I am finished with this course, I will be an expert, because I am going to educate myself as much as I can on this. And I think it's interesting that, our government is putting so much effort into this H1N1 vaccine, which is a relatively mild flu. And, while I do think that we need to be concerned about flu, I think that they're putting a lot of effort into this, but they're not putting a lot of effort into studying and finding vaccines for Lyme, which is such an incredibly destructive disease. And if they had a good, solid vaccine, it would save a lot of lives. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say. I don't really feel sorry for myself, and yet will I praise Him. In our suffering, and yet will I praise Him. I know that God has a purpose for this. What it is, I'm not sure. But I know He has a purpose for my betterment and for His glory. But in the meantime, this is what I've been dealt, so I have to deal with it. And that's all I have to say. BK out.